The blackness of space seemed even darker as Admiral Douglas Carter stood alone on the observation deck of the UES Horizon, his weathered face reflected in the reinforced glass as he watched bright flashes in the distance. Each flash meant death. Each meant failure. "They're all gone, sir," said Heather Garcia as she entered the deck. The young communications officer held her tablet tight against her chest, as if it might shield her from the news she carried. "The Vesteri destroyed every single one of our peace ships. No survivors." Douglas closed his eyes. 20 years of war had taught him to control his emotions, but this was different. This wasn't a battle. This was a massacre of unarmed diplomats. "I warned them," he said quietly. "I told Command the Vesteri don't understand peace offers as anything but weakness." The Galactic Alliance, a union of 17 different alien civilizations, had been fighting the Vesteri Empire since before Earth officially joined the conflict. Humans had kept their involvement limited, offering medical aid, sharing technology, providing tactical advice, but never committing their full military strength. "Sir," Heather continued, "Alliance Command is requesting our assistance in evacuating the Proxima colony. The Vesteri have broken through their defenses." Douglas turned from the window. "How many civilians?" "Over 3 million. The Admiral walked to the command table and activated the holographic display. A 3-dimensional map of the sector appeared, showing Alliance territories in blue and Vesteri conquests in red. There was much more red than there had been a month ago. "Get me William," Douglas ordered. Moments later, Commander William Powell's face appeared on the screen. He was on Earth, serving as liaison between the fleet and United Earth government. "I saw the reports," William said, his face grim. "All ships lost. This changes everything, Will. They didn't just reject our peace offer, they executed our diplomats. The Vesteri have made their position perfectly clear." William nodded slowly. "I'll inform President Green immediately. Tell him it's time for Protocol Terminus." The words hung in the air between them. Protocol Terminus wasn't just a military response, it was Earth's final option. Full mobilization of all human forces. "Are you certain, Doug? Once we commit, look at the map, Will." Douglas gestured to the holographic display. "The Alliance is losing. If the Vesteri take the Cygnus Corridor, they cut off half the Alliance worlds. After that, nothing stops them from targeting human colonies next." William's expression hardened with resolve. "I understand. I'll make the call." After the transmission ended, Douglas turned to Heather. "Send orders to all human ships in Alliance space. We're moving to war footing effective immediately." "Yes, sir. What about Proxima Colony?" "Tell them help is coming." Douglas walked back to the window, looking out at the stars. "And contact Captain Lewis Ryan on the UES Dauntless. I want his battle group ready to move within the hour." As Heather left, Douglas remained at the window, alone with his thoughts. Humanity had hoped to avoid full-scale war. They had tried diplomacy, sanctions, limited military support, everything short of committing their entire force. Now that force would be unleashed. The Admiral knew something the Vesteri didn't, something few outside human military leadership understood. Earth's visible fleet was just the tip of the spear. For 20 years, while providing measured support to the Alliance, humanity had been building, planning, preparing for the day when peace was no longer an option. That day had finally come. The United Earth Council chamber fell silent as Fleet Commander Olivia Martinez finished her report. 50 council members from Earth and its colonies sat in stunned silence, their faces illuminated by the blue glow of data screens showing the latest Vesteri attacks. "Let me be clear," Olivia said, her voice strong despite having gone without sleep for nearly 40 hours. "The Vesteri didn't just reject our peace terms. They executed our diplomats and broadcast the executions across Alliance channels. This was a message, not just to us, but to every species considering surrender." President Samuel Green stood up from his chair at the center of the circular table. His gray hair and lined face showed the strain of leading humanity through years of growing tension. Commander Martinez, what's your assessment? Can the Alliance hold without our full support? Olivia touched her tablet, and the main display changed to show battle statistics. No, sir. At current loss rates, the Alliance will collapse within 4 months. The Vesteri have taken 32 systems in the past 60 days alone. The sickness corridor will fall within weeks. And if we implement Protocol Terminus? Asked Counselor Jason Miller, representative from the Mars colonies. We can change the course of the war, Olivia replied simply. The room filled with murmurs as council members discussed among themselves. Protocol Terminus had existed for 15 years, but had never been activated. It represented total war, the commitment of humanity's full military power. President Green raised his hand for silence. What the council may not realize is that we've been preparing for this possibility since we first encountered the Vestari. Commander, please show them. Olivia nodded and entered a high-level security code. The room's displays changed to show Earth's complete military assets. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The revealed fleet size was more than 20 times what most council members believed existed. How is this possible? Asked Counselor Rita Patel. These numbers can't be right. They're accurate, President Green confirmed. For the past 2 decades, we've been building ships in secret facilities throughout our territory. When we recognized the Vesteri threat, we began preparing while hoping diplomacy would succeed. Olivia highlighted different sections of the display. The ships you know about, our visible defense fleet, represent less than 5% of our actual strength. The rest have been held in reserve, running silent in remote systems, hidden in gas giants, or kept disassembled in orbital construction yards. The council chamber erupted in voices, some angry, others amazed. Quiet, President Green commanded. This deception was necessary. If the Vesteri had known our true strength, they would have attacked us directly years ago, before we were ready. Instead, they focused on what they saw as the greater threat, the combined Alliance worlds. So we've been lying to our allies too? Asked Counselor Patel. Only partially, Olivia explained. Alliance leadership knows we have reserve forces. They don't know the full extent. President Green moved to the center of the room. The time for hiding is over. The Vesteri have made their intentions clear. They want nothing less than complete domination of known space. We've tried every peaceful option. Now we must act decisively. He looked at each council member in turn. I need your vote. Do we authorize Protocol Terminus? The vote took less than 10 minutes. The result, unanimous approval. As the council session ended, Olivia received new orders on her tablet. Ships hidden throughout human space were powering up. Crews on standby were boarding vessels that had never seen combat. Construction yards were finalizing warships that had been built in sections, waiting for this very day. Within hours, the greatest fleet humanity had ever assembled would begin to move, and the Vesteri Empire would soon learn they had gravely miscalculated. General Diane Foster hadn't slept in 36 hours. The command center on Arcadia was filled with the sounds of frantic communication as her staff coordinated refugee movements. Through the reinforced windows, she could see thousands of displaced aliens setting up temporary shelters across the valley. Another transport just arrived from Vega Prime, reported Sergeant Peter Collins, placing a fresh cup of coffee next to her tactical display. 800 more refugees, mostly Nylari families. Diane rubbed her tired eyes. Where are we putting them? We've converted the eastern agricultural domes. It's not ideal, but it's shelter. A loud alarm blared, and both officers turned to the main screen. Another Alliance outpost had fallen. The tactical map updated automatically, more territory turning from blue to the angry red of Vesteri control. That's the 3rd outpost this week, Peter said quietly. Diane zoomed in on the sector map. The Vesteri are getting bolder. They're not even consolidating their gains before pushing forward anymore. They don't need to. Our defenses are spread too thin. The command center door slid open as Ambassador Krell entered. The tall, four-armed Tellarite diplomat looked as exhausted as Diane felt. The chitinous plates on his face had dulled from their usual shiny blue to a pale gray, a sign of extreme stress in his species. "General Foster," Krell said, his translator converting his clicking language to English. "I must know. Have you received any word from your government?" Diane gestured for the ambassador to join her at the tactical display. "Earth has acknowledged our situation. They're sending supplies and medical teams." Supplies. Krell's upper arms gestured in frustration. "We need ships, soldiers. The Vestari will reach this sector in weeks. I understand your frustration, Ambassador, but I can only tell you what I know." Peter glanced at Diane, then addressed the ambassador. "Sir, if I may, there are rumors among the Alliance troops. They say humans are mobilizing their full military strength." Krell's headplates shifted skeptically. "Humans have been in this war for years, yet we've only seen a fraction of your ships, always held back at your borders, always limited engagement." "That's been our policy, yes," Diane admitted. "And now, when it may be too late," Krell pointed to the map, "the Cygnus corridor will fall any day. That cuts off 12 Alliance worlds from support, including this one." Diane looked at the map thoughtfully. "Ambassador, how much do you know about human history?" "I've studied the basic texts required for diplomatic service." "Then you know we fought many wars among ourselves before we achieved unity. We learned some hard lessons." Diane touched the display, highlighting Earth's territory in green. "One of those lessons is that showing your full strength too early can escalate conflicts beyond control. Another is that when you finally commit to war, you don't hold back." "Pretty words, General. But we need action." At that moment, Peter's communication device beeped. He listened intently, his eyes widening. "General, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command." Diane straightened. "Put it on the main screen." The tactical display was replaced by the face of Admiral Gregory Wilson. His expression was stern, but there was energy in his eyes that Diane hadn't seen in years. "General Foster, I'm contacting all human commanders in Alliance space. Protocol Terminus has been authorized. The 7th and 8th fleets will arrive in your sector within 18 hours. The Vestari advance through the Cygnus corridor will be intercepted." Diane couldn't hide her shock. "The 7th and 8th, both of them." "All of them, General. Every fleet, every ship. Humanity has entered the war in full." As the transmission ended, Ambassador Krell stared at Diane in confusion. "What does this mean? How many ships are in these fleets?" For the first time in months, Diane Foster smiled. "Ambassador, you might want to gather your people. Tell them to prepare for good news." "How good?" "The kind that ends wars." Supreme Commander Zelvax lounged on his command throne, examining the holographic display of conquered Alliance territories with satisfaction. The throne room of the Vestari flagship Eternal Dominion glowed with the purple light that all Vestari preferred, casting long shadows across the polished black floor. "Magnificent, isn't it?" Zelvax ran a clawed hand through the hologram, watching as it rippled around his fingers. 20 years of war, and finally the Alliance crumbles before us. General Kivosh approached cautiously. Unlike his Supreme Commander, Kivosh preferred practicality to theatrics. His battle armor was functional rather than decorative, and his expression remained serious as he studied the map. "Our forces have taken the Orient sector with minimal losses," Kivosh reported. "The Alliance defenders withdrew rather than face our fleet." "As they should," Zelvax smiled, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. "Soon they will all bow before us." "Have the mining operations begun on the captured worlds?" "Yes, Commander. Resource extraction is proceeding ahead of schedule." Zelvax nodded with approval. The Vestari Empire expanded through conquest, stripping captured planets of resources before moving on. It was the way of their people for centuries, a strategy that had brought them dominance over a third of the galaxy. "And what of the humans?" Zelvax asked. Have they finally acknowledged our superiority? Kavosh hesitated, and that brief pause caught the Supreme Commander's attention. Speak, General. What troubles you? Our intelligence networks have detected unusual activity in human space. Kavosh activated his personal data pad, displaying intercepted communications and sensor readings. Their shipyards are working at maximum capacity. Military vessels are being moved from their standard patrol routes. Training exercises have been canceled. Zelvax waved a dismissive hand. The humans are afraid, as they should be. They see their alliance friends falling and prepare their defenses. With respect, Commander, this appears to be more than defensive preparation. Kavosh enlarged one section of the display. Our deep space probes have detected energy signatures consistent with large-scale fleet movements. Many more ships than they've ever acknowledged possessing. For the first time, a flicker of concern crossed Zelvax's face. He leaned forward, studying the data more carefully. How many vessels are we talking about? Impossible to say precisely. Our probes were destroyed after transmitting this data, but based on the signature patterns. Kavosh paused, as if reluctant to continue. Speak plainly, General. Potentially thousands of warships, Commander, far beyond what our intelligence suggested they possessed. Zelvax stood abruptly, his cloak sweeping behind him as he paced across the command deck. The other officers kept their distance, recognizing his dangerous mood. Impossible, he finally declared. The humans have maintained a modest defensive fleet for decades. Where would they hide such a force? How could they build it without our knowledge? Kavosh stood his ground. The humans control over 50 star systems, Commander. Many contain uninhabited planets, asteroid fields, nebula, perfect hiding places for ships or construction facilities. And you believe they've been deceiving us, building in secret while pretending to be a minor power. I believe we should consider the possibility. Their diplomatic efforts have been persistent despite our rejections. Perhaps they were buying time. Zelvax returned to his throne, claws tapping against the armrest as he considered this information. After a long silence, he laughed, a harsh, rattling sound that echoed through the chamber. Let them gather whatever ships they have, he declared. Even if they've been hiding forces, they lack the will to use them effectively. Humans value individual lives too highly to be true warriors. Kavosh opened his mouth to object, then closed it. When the Supreme Commander was in such a mood, further argument was pointless and potentially dangerous. Yes, Commander. Shall I continue with the planned assault on the Cygnus corridor? Proceed as scheduled, Zelvax commanded. By the time the humans decide to act, this war will already be over. As Kavosh bowed and departed, Zelvax returned his attention to the holographic map. Yet a small seed of doubt had been planted in his mind, one that would soon grow into something far more troubling. Captain Elizabeth Washington stood on the bridge of the Alliance Starship Defender, her face illuminated by the red emergency lights. The ship shuddered as another energy blast struck their weakening shields. Shield capacity at 28%, reported Lieutenant Frank Miller, his fingers dancing across the tactical console. We can't take much more of this, Captain. Elizabeth nodded grimly. Status of the evacuation. Last two transports are still in the gravity well. They need another 6 minutes to make the jump to safety. Through the view screen, Elizabeth could see the Centauri outpost below them. Once home to over 50,000 civilians, now its streets were empty except for a few remaining evacuation ships. In the distance, 5 Visteri destroyers approached in perfect formation. Lieutenant Kelly, divert power from all non-essential systems to the shields, Elizabeth ordered. We just need to buy those transports a few more minutes. Captain, Frank called out suddenly, I'm detecting multiple hyperspace ruptures behind our position. A hush fell over the bridge. Everyone knew what that meant. More Visteri ships. How many? Elizabeth asked, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her chest. Frank stared at his console in disbelief. I'm not sure. The readings are. Hundreds, Captain. Hundreds of ships. That's impossible. Elizabeth moved to his station. The Vesteri don't have that many ships in this sector. They're not Vesteri signatures, Frank said, looking up with wide eyes. They're human. The bridge crew exchanged confused glances. Elizabeth turned back to the main view screen just as space itself seemed to tear open. A massive portal of swirling blue energy formed, and through it came ships. Not just any ships, human warships. First dozens, then scores, then hundreds, emerging in perfect formation. Elizabeth had seen human vessels before, the small diplomatic flotillas, the occasional patrol ship. What emerged now was something else entirely. Massive dreadnoughts flanked by cruisers, destroyers, and fighter carriers. Ships so large they darkened the stars behind them. "My God," whispered Communications Officer Natalie Rivera. Where did they all come from? The incoming transmission alert sounded before Elizabeth could respond. "Captain Washington," Natalie reported, "we're receiving a hail from the human flagship." On screen. The view screen changed to show a human officer in a crisp dark uniform with gold trim. His silver hair and confident posture marked him as a high-ranking commander. "Captain Washington," he said calmly, "Admiral Gregory Wilson of the United Earth Force's 8th Fleet. I see you have some unwelcome visitors. Would you like us to handle that for you?" Elizabeth struggled to find her voice. "Admiral Wilson, we weren't expecting such a substantial response." The Admiral's expression remained professional, but a small smile touched his lips. "Captain, humanity has tried diplomacy. We've tried measured responses. The Vesteri have made it clear they understand only one language." He glanced off-screen. "And we're about to become very fluent in it." As if to punctuate his words, dozens of human ships moved forward, positioning themselves between the Defender and the approaching Vesteri vessels. "The civilian transports," Elizabeth said. "They still need." "Already taken care of," Wilson interrupted. "We've dispatched escorts to bring them to safety." On the tactical display, Frank watched in amazement as the Vesteri destroyers suddenly reversed course. "They're retreating," he announced, disbelief evident in his voice. Elizabeth turned back to the Admiral. "They're running from you." Wilson nodded. "Yes, but not for long. We're not here to scare them away, Captain Washington. We're here to end this war." As the human armada moved into formation, Elizabeth realized she was witnessing the beginning of something history would never forget. The moment when everything changed. Supreme Commander Zelvax paced the Vesteri Command Center, his claws clicking against the metal floor. The room, normally orderly and quiet, had descended into chaos. Officers rushed between stations, shouting reports and orders. Emergency alerts flashed on screens across the chamber. "What do you mean we've lost contact with the 3rd Expeditionary Force?" Zelvax demanded, grabbing a junior officer by his armor collar. "They had 15 battleships." "Gone, Supreme Commander," the officer replied, voice trembling. "Last transmission indicated they were surrounded by human vessels. Then nothing." Zelvax shoved the officer away and turned to the main tactical display. The map that had shown Vesteri conquests in triumphant red was rapidly changing. Entire sectors were now blinking yellow for contested or blue for recaptured. "This is impossible," he whispered. Intelligence Director Mira approached cautiously. Unlike most Vesteri, her scaled skin was pale gray rather than the typical deep purple, marking her mixed heritage. That same heritage had given her insights into other species that pure Vesteri often lacked. "Supreme Commander," she said quietly, "you need to see this." She activated her datapad, projecting footage from the front lines. The images showed massive human fleets engaging Vesteri forces, not just 1 or 2 fleets, but many, attacking simultaneously across a dozen sectors. Hundreds of ships moved in perfect coordination, their weapons tearing through Vesteri defenses. "Where did these ships come from?" Zelvax demanded. "We've monitored human territory for years. Their fleet was minimal." Mira's expression remained calm. "They hid them, Commander. In gas giants, behind moons, in asteroid fields. Some were kept disassembled until needed. They've been building in secret while showing us only what they wanted us to see. Another officer approached, his armor scorched from a recent battle. Supreme Commander, the humans have broken our blockade at Ta City. Alliance refugees are being evacuated under human protection. The Procyon system has fallen, called another. Human forces have established a forward base there. Cygnus corridor defenses are collapsing, reported a third. We've lost 70% of our ships there. Zelvax slammed his fist against the command console, cracking its surface. How? How is this happening? The entire human fleet couldn't match half our strength. That's just it, Commander, Mira said softly. What we thought was their entire fleet was merely a fraction, a visible deterrent while their true forces remained hidden. The room fell silent as a new alert sounded. The main screen switched to show a human battle group approaching the Vesteri home system. They wouldn't dare, Zelvax breathed. They already have, Mira replied. This isn't just a counterattack. This is a coordinated offensive across all fronts. The humans aren't fighting like we do, Commander. They didn't commit their forces piecemeal. They waited, gathered everything they had, and struck all at once. Zelvax sank into his command chair, the reality of the situation finally sinking in. Why? Why wait until now? They could have done this years ago. Mira's expression showed a rare Vesteri emotion, respect for an enemy. Because they're not like us, she explained. Humans don't fight for glory or conquest. They fight when they have no other choice, when diplomacy fails, when their allies are threatened, when peace is no longer possible. She gestured to the tactical display. We killed their diplomats. We laughed at their peace offers. We threatened their allies. We left them no option but war. And now? Zelvax asked, his voice uncharacteristically quiet. Mira looked at the screens showing human fleets advancing across Vesteri space. Now we learn what humans are truly capable of when pushed too far. Around them, the command center continued to fill with reports of defeats, retreats, and lost territories. The mighty Vesteri Empire, which had seemed unstoppable just days before, was collapsing in the face of humanity's unexpected strength. The reckoning had arrived. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the New Geneva Station's grand ceremonial hall. Admiral Douglas Carter stood straight in his formal uniform, watching as the Vesteri delegation approached the large round table. Just 30 days had passed since humanity had revealed its true military strength. 30 days to end a war that had raged for 20 years. The Vesteri representatives looked smaller than Douglas remembered, their normally proud posture now stiff with defeat. Supreme Commander Zelvax was notably absent. In his place, Intelligence Director Mira led the delegation, her gray scales reflecting the bright lights of the hall. Fleet Commander Olivia Martinez stood beside Douglas, her expression carefully neutral despite the historic significance of the moment. Around them, representatives from 17 Alliance species watched in silence as the peace document was placed on the table. The terms are fair, Olivia said quietly to the Vesteri delegation. Immediate end to hostilities. Withdrawal to your original borders. Return of conquered worlds. Reparations for civilian losses. Mira studied the document, her vertical pupils narrowing. No demands for Vesteri territory. No military restrictions. No punitive measures beyond the reparations. We want peace, not revenge, Douglas replied. This document ensures both our peoples can move forward. Mira looked up at him, curiosity evident in her alien features. Many of the species here would not be so generous if they had achieved the victory you have. Then it's fortunate for everyone that we did achieve it, Olivia said. Without further comment, Mira pressed her palm to the document, making it official. The hall erupted in applause and cheers from the Alliance representatives. The Vesteri delegation withdrew quickly, escorted to their ship. As the formal reception began, Alliance Chancellor Corvin approached the human officers. The elderly Tellerite moved slowly, leaning on an ornate staff, but his eyes were sharp with intelligence. Admiral Carter, he said, his translator converting his clicking speech to smooth English. Commander Martinez, today marks a new chapter for the Alliance, one we owe to humanity. Douglas inclined his head respectfully. The Alliance fought bravely for many years before we fully joined the conflict. Yet I must ask what many are wondering, Corvin continued. Why keep your true strength hidden for so long? This war might have ended years ago had the Vesteri known what they faced. Douglas exchanged a glance with Olivia before answering. Chancellor, throughout human history, we learned hard lessons about power. When we display our strength too readily, others arm themselves in response. Arms races lead to larger conflicts, not peace. Olivia nodded. We hoped peaceful solutions would prevail. We tried diplomacy for years. When that failed, we made sure our response would end the fighting quickly rather than prolong it. Corvin's headplates shifted in what humans had learned was a thoughtful expression. Before she left, Director Mira told me something surprising. She said the Vesteri feared humans not for your weapons, but for your restraint, because you chose not to fight until you had no other option. Douglas smiled slightly. An old human saying goes, speak softly and carry a big stick. We prefer speaking, but when words fail, the stick becomes very apparent, Corvin finished. I believe I understand now. The three of them turned to look out the station's large viewport, where ships from dozens of species traveled peacefully among the stars. The rebuilding will take time, Olivia said, but together we can create something stronger than before. Douglas watched as a human medical ship docked at the station, bringing supplies for worlds damaged in the conflict. That's the true strength of humanity, he said quietly. Not our hidden fleets or our weapons, but what we build in times of peace. Across Alliance space, the news spread from planet to planet, ship to ship. The war was over. A new era had begun, and everyone had learned an important lesson about their human allies. They were far more than they appeared to be.